Cool, I'll hand over to you.
Fab. So, what do I want you to take away from this talk? The cybersecurity market is really unusual. Unlike a lot of industries, it is almost entirely driven by PR, sales, and marketing, which would be fine if ships don't sink if security is done badly. How does a cybersecurity leader wade through the waters, avoid sinking, and float away like Rose did? Through prioritising cyber defence relevance, which is what I'm going to talk about. So who am I? I'm Rosie Anderson. I wear many hats, including apparently being one of the most inspiring women in cyber, which I find really cringe. I'm one of the organisers of this B-Sides, but I'm going to talk to you as head of solutions for that security company. You'll notice I said head of solutions and not sales. It's a role that's created to be a problem solver and not a sales droid desperately trying to hit KPIs. So my role is very much having conversations with customers, helping pick out the relevant problems and pains for that customer. So my background before working in this role was recruitment. So someone is actually ringing me. Did I hear that was? Sorry. My role before working in cyber, which I've only actually been doing for 6 months now, was recruitment. So now instead of solving hiring problems for customers, I'm trying to help solve their cybersecurity challenges and find the right solution. If you think of your standard GP, if you have a headache and you go to a doctor, a standard doctor will give you painkillers. But a good doctor will start to look at what those underlying conditions are, like what's causing that headache. And that's what we try and do, or what I try and do with my role. So why is this an important approach to cyber? Because relevance matters. So if we think about the Titanic had 2,200-ish people, but only lifeboats for 1,200-ish. One of the main reasons was that it was told it was unsinkable, which meant cluttering it with lifeboats was deemed unnecessary, and it was a contradictory PR move. The owners of the Titanic didn't prepare for the relevant threats it could face, and they neglected to put defence and depth measures in place. Instead, they entrusted safety to the designers and PR spinners wanting to sell tickets. Try and slow down. When we encourage companies to buy the next AI-powered humanless sock, magic genie tool, we're encouraging this Titanic effect. Vendors selling the solution to cyber risk, for example, are selling that unsinkable ship, and we all know what happened there. So what is the problem that we see? When one vendor supplies one tool to meet all of the business security requirements, they're encouraging this Titanic effect. Vendors don't use tactics that don't work. They're selling a cure and people buy it. If leaders don't stop and think about your specific business needs and buy tools and services with relevance in mind, you're heading for an iceberg that you don't have the rescue boats for. The common rhetoric that we hear is the board needs to understand cybersecurity. But the truth is, cybersecurity needs to be able to communicate with that board in language that they understand, they respect, and they act upon. One of the key lessons here is that understanding a business, its drives, its goals, its plans, and even things such as how high profile the board members are in the press, for example, can have a huge impact on your threat profile. Business stakeholders need to have faith in those security teams, but it's even more critical that those security teams and providers understand the business's goals, how it operates, how it works, really, to ensure they guard against those icebergs. You're going to get lots of reference to icebergs. I'm really sorry. Okay. You only have to go to InfoSec. I'm not going to say B-Sides. You only have to go to InfoSec or any other highly vendor-driven conference, and you'll see really bold claims from providers. They might end all cyber risk, or they might use the moon's gravitational pull to predict security breaches. And these claims don't help our cause as an industry. Now, we can laugh at the vendors and we can laugh at their outrageous claims, but we're not laughing at the people who are buying these solutions. The same as with the Titanic. The people that boarded that ship were not to blame for it sinking, and neither was the crew. I can't see my notes. If I press down, does that work? Yes, that's fine. Neither were the crew. The problem was the PR spinners and the stakeholders. They were responsible for selling that impossible dream that married a solution to a problem. Affordable travel and an opportunity of a new life in America was what was sold, the same as if you sell complete cyber defense. We cannot solve problems with tools alone, and we cannot entrust our business security to PR spinners like the builders of the Titanic did. I have lost my mouse. Give me 1 second. There. Okay. So how do we navigate this? Speaking the language of the board is a great indicator of success in getting your projects approved. It's all very well a cybersecurity manager wants a shiny new tool that they heard about at a conference, normally paid for by sales departments of vendors, but normally the board has to approve that purchase. If cybersecurity isn't on the board's agenda and the risk isn't contextualised to what they understand, it's very unlikely to get approved. So you might have a CEO hires an accountancy firm because the end goal is to not inadvertently commit tax fraud and end up in jail. That accountancy firm calls the CEO. They're upselling a digital solution for expense policy. The CEO thinks, do I go to prison if I don't buy this tool? I'm not interested then. The tool has not been aligned to the point of the CEO using that service. To be successful at persuading the board, oh crap, wrong button. Bear with. 2 screens. To be successful at persuading the board to purchase cyber solutions, we've got to articulate how buying that tool, that product, that scene, that pen test impacts the bottom line, or what the risk of the problem of the bottom line being affected is if they don't do what we want them to do and give us the money. It's really nice to be a secure business, and it's nice to have an office with beanbags and beer fridges, but if it doesn't have a positive impact on the business, why will the board care? So another metaphor for you. Head of facilities wants a budget to make a new break room with pool table, beanbags, emotional support dog, calm room. Again, your CEO, do I go to prison if I say no? Does anyone die if I say no? Do I lose money if I say no? What are they going to say? However, if we bridge this as we have really low staff retention, we've got really low morale, we're losing staff to our competitors, and we are paying money hand over fist in recruitment fees. If you give me 20k to build what I want to build, I'll save you 75k on recruitment costs in 2024 alone. Suddenly you're allowed to build up a proposal. So it's really important to think how your board thinks if you're trying to get your projects approved. Another aspect of relevance is specifically the threats the business is going to face. For example, hacktivists. Now, some businesses aren't going to get attacked, you would think, by those specific threat vectors. But when you're dealing with a mature company that understands those attacks, understands their threat profile, relevance being taken into account for the business. Another issue we see is the language that's being used between security teams, IT teams, heads of security. It's so fractured. One person's talking fancy tech and the other one's saying, I haven't got a clue what you're saying, you're wasting my time. So to get what you want from the board, you've got to speak the language of finance in the C-suite. Again, another example for you. A small investment firm wants a vulnerability management tool. They might not need one, but they want one. They explain to the board, we're going to use this tool, and this is how we're going to do it. It's going to increase our own cyber defences, but it's also going to scan up-and-coming investments to look how secure they are. If they don't have security in place, it'll allow us to do better due diligence, and we might be able to make purchases cheaper. So by aligning what we know the business goals are, make new investments, find cheaper ways to find new investments, you've got better success of getting your budget approved. And how do we stop those pesky ticket sellers of unsinkable ships? Having a community of peers like we have right now with B-Sides can help stop bad practices. Reference checking with your peers. Have you used this tool? What do you think? Getting that sort of experience. Calling out and questioning bad practices. And sharing knowledge, like sharing success stories, sharing our problems with our peers, helps build that community. So, I've lost my mouse again. Just sing to you. If your business has a clear business strategy, a 12-year plan, a 12-month plan, 2-year plan, 5-year plan, it makes it a lot easier to align your security goals too. However, if you're not in that enviable position, I've created like a checklist that you can scan of things to consider. It does work, or it did work this morning. Let you scan that. If anyone wants that after, just message me if you don't want to scan links. So future predictions. The industry will mature, like the IT industry did. Cybersecurity is where IT was 20 years ago. It is going to mature. There will become a point where regulation does overpower PR. If we think about the Titanic, there's now a lot, those regulations were outdated. There's now rescue strategies that businesses have to do if you're flowing ships. We're already seeing this with the SEC in America, so new regulations that are coming out there. You must disclose a material incident within 4 days, things like that. And any public trading bodies have to expect to be attacked and be prepared. Companies that make these really bold and untrue claims will eventually struggle. And fingers crossed, be called out for what they're doing. I think in the mainstream media, a business has been called out as snake oil. So the message is getting out there. But no business is too big to fail. Stop trying to solve problems with tools alone and think about your relevance. Just because a new product, tool, practice is in fashion doesn't mean it's a requirement for your business's security success. There are no silver bullets. There are no useful cookie-cutter solutions. And vendors are being exploitative to think they can play GP and prescribe open brain surgery for a minor headache. If we question how someone can sell to your problems when they don't know anything about what those problems are, they're counting on you not knowing what you need. And that is me done, if my slides work. Oh no.
So there's a lot of courses that new people into cyber can go on to learn the technical aspects and the technology, etc.
Yeah.
What would you recommend, though, for somebody relatively new to cyber or sort of wanting to move out of the technical domain? How could they potentially go and learn to think more strategically and speak more like the CEO?
So it's practice. So, for me, I'm doing that now. I'm sort of learning how to speak to people. It's asking open questions and not being afraid to say, I don't know the answer to that. But tell me more about what you do. And having that time with practicing explaining things. So, for example, one of the things I try and do is I try and explain to my 8-year-old what I do for a job. And if he can understand it, then I try and explain it to my mum, who doesn't understand it. But it means that you keep practicing how you say things and going and speaking to other leaders, asking them. I wouldn't recommend any courses because I don't know what are the best ones for that, but there will be courses that you can do as well.
Add on that.
Yeah.
Talk to old people who've been around for a long time. I look back to my first job when I worked for BT, before BT, British Telecom. We had the 7-inch club logo. I would suggest something to senior management, to my senior team. Whatever, Tim. Whatever. And then my boss, who was several years older than me, quite a lot of, all my age now, when I was 20, he'd say exactly the same thing. Oh yeah, Jim, yeah, that's really good. And it's grey hair. And it's that sort of maturity. So I think you can't expect to go in as a very young person until you've got that credibility. You will build that credibility by getting it right, by sitting and listening and testing the water. But over time, it builds. And once you've got that sort of credibility, I recruited a young lady into my team a few years ago, and she would have been about 20 when I recruited her in. Absolutely brilliant as your security specialist. Absolutely top hole. And we went into the board and said, we want to do this. And so she presented it all. She knew all that stuff. She put all the stuff together. And the board looked at me and said, is that right, Tim? I said, I don't know. She's a specialist. And that helped her get the credibility. It was just, that's sort of like, well, I know. I recruited her because she's a specialist. So there's a certain amount of that will happen. But definitely, if you want to start talking to board people, you have to think like board people, which means, unfortunately, you have to get out of the technical world and, as Rosie was saying, get into, risk, profit, all things like that.
I think you're right, actually. I think one of the challenges for people who are young is they're normally so enthusiastic about doing the right thing. They've got all these really good creative ideas. And what they don't do is they think about it's so obvious, why is nobody doing it? But they don't take a step back and think, actually, from the other side, why is it important to that person, and tell the story in the right way. I can't remember, it was somebody used to say to me that their job wasn't CISO, it was chief storyteller. And that's part of it. Yeah.
Because there's been a trend of should a CISO be technical? Oh, that's a good one. Get into that LinkedIn or Twitter. Go for it. Yeah. I'll put my tongue to.
I'm going to put this back here.
Yes, a CISO should be technical, but it doesn't mean they've got to be technically hands-on today, right up to date with the skills, because you can't know everything.
No.
Sorry?
Got a question for you, Rosie. I feel like the conversation between business and cyber is always going to be skewed because cyber seems to be more willing to admit we don't know everything, whereas a lot of traditional or the technical or more strategically technical people feel like they do, and I feel like you're always going to lose the conversation if you say, look, I don't know that I can tell you what I know now, but we can't promise the outcome. Do you feel like cyber is always going to be at a disadvantage because we have more of those people in our corner?
I think pretending that you know something is back into that lying. You're going to get caught in a lie if you pretend that you know all the answers. Same with the board. Like, the board doesn't know all the answers. They just have to make the best decision on that day.
But they do front like they do.
Yeah.
That's what I mean, whereas cyber is quite ahead from that.
Yeah. But I wouldn't want it to. Because if you ask a cyber person, unless you ask a CISO, am I going to get breached today? I don't know. You don't want to say yes or no. It depends is such a phrase for a reason.
You mentioned that you see cyber going into legislation.
Yeah.
A bit like, I suppose, when you look back at health and safety.
Yeah.
It's bolted on, and then obviously it's designed in the buildings, and it's kind of just what we do. What do you think it's going to take for it to kind of get there? If we don't look way on.
I would hope that we're way off. Too much legislation will hamper us, hinder us, I feel, as an industry, but we need some legislation to the bond claims. But then you look at some of the claims, and we laugh at them as an industry. You know, we can't handle cyber risk. Nothing is actually military grade. Nothing's unhackable. But there needs to be something around that, because as a business owner is going to buy that solution, they're thinking, I've got the cure, I'm cured, I bought the tool, I will not get hacked, and they will. Eventually. Everyone will, eventually. Hopefully Charles.
And that's where the consultancies come in as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it used to drive me absolutely staring potty when I worked for big corporates. Because we would buy these security tools because they happen to be up there in the government. And
Where's
we
my
would use it to do that.
Yeah.
Now, the reality is when you actually look at the tool properly, it can do that. But you've actually bought 15 other tools that do that, and that. And I think some of the value that consultancies or good cyber people can do is taking that step back and going, okay, I don't really want to just buy the new exciting toy. I want to look at what we've got and work out whether it can do the 80-20 part.
Absolutely. Exploit what you've got and what you already know.
Yeah.
If you've bought a tool, train yourself in it or train a team in it, learn everything that it will do absolutely everything that will there.
Yeah.
Because you're better off having 80% covered than 20 tools to do.
And don't talk to each other.
Yeah.
Mal, sorry.
First and foremost, so we haven't got military as in Secondly, you talk about talking relevance to C-level people. Where do you think in a career trajectory that starts?
Oh, it should start
Junior SOC analyst level? SOC manager level? Head of SOC level? Where do you think that starts?
At some point, SOC analysts should be able to talk to peers and one above. Maybe not C-suite. You need your SOC leads and SOC managers. I would suggest. But there are things like reverse mentoring that can happen in the business, and it depends on the size of the business. A CISO of a 50-person company will probably talk to everybody in that company. They're probably not CISO, they're probably a head of security with the title of a CISO, depending on how much the person wants to be paid from a recruitment stand. But you should be able to talk to your leaders, and leaders should be visible. Now, it will be very different in a FTSE 500 company where they're in an ivory tower. You've got to get meetings with them. But it's practice. It's speaking to the peers, it's speaking to the managers, it's coming to conferences like this. You want to talk to a CISO, come to a conference and talk to them there. Practice, what do they care about? What's important to them? Same with the board. If you know you have a board made up of 5 people, research those people. You need to know what they're like, how risk averse they are, how to communicate to them, what presses their buttons, what do they care about. And that's where that relevance is sort of checklist is started. Any more questions? Right.
I'll throw one on the back. Day one. When you want to start talking to the board, start on day one. If you can't write a document, all the work you've done is irrelevant. And people ask me in the past, how to get security, how to write, how to present, how to stand up there and talk to people.
How to use Excel.
delete Excel. That's the other thing. If you can't, you say, can you explain to your 8-year-old? Well, that's great. If you can't explain to somebody, meaningless.
Why should I do this? Why should I care? Why should I do this? Why should I care? Does somebody die if I don't do this? Yeah, that's one of them. Thank you.